The last thing my daughter said before hanging up was, "Mom, please don't come for Christmas." She wanted my ex-husband's new wife to have her perfect holiday, and apparently, I didn't fit into the picture anymore. I didn't argue. I simply wished her a Merry Christmas, put my phone away, and volunteered for another overnight military shift. By midnight, they were celebrating around the Christmas tree without me. Then my ex-husband's phone rang. The caller ID read Pentagon. 30 seconds later, his face turned white, because the people who had just excluded me were about to discover who I really was and why Washington was looking for me. My name is Rachel Carter, and I'm 42 years old. For 22 years, I wore my country's uniform with pride. I wasn't the kind of soldier who appeared on magazine covers or gave speeches on television. I worked behind the scenes, making sure people, equipment, and critical missions reached the right place at the right time. Most people never knew my name, and that was fine with me. The only title I cared about more than officer was mom. At least it used to be. My marriage ended 12 years ago. There wasn't one dramatic fight or one unforgettable betrayal. Life simply wore us down. Long deployments, missed anniversaries, canceled vacations, and birthdays celebrated through blurry video calls slowly built a wall between my ex-husband, David, and me. Eventually, we signed the papers, promised to stay respectful for our daughter's sake, and tried to move forward. Our daughter, Emma, stayed close to both of us. I never blamed her for loving her father or accepting his new life. In fact, I encouraged it. Children shouldn't have to choose between parents. 3 days before Christmas, I was finishing paperwork in my office when my phone lit up with Emma's name. I smiled before answering. "Hey, sweetheart." She hesitated. "Mom, are you busy? For you? Never." There was another long silence. "I need to ask you something." The nervousness in her voice made my stomach tighten. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "Dad's wife is spending her first Christmas with us. We all think maybe it would be better if you didn't come this year." The room suddenly felt colder. She hurried to explain. "It's not because we don't love you. We just want her to feel like she's part of the family. Dad says things might be awkward if everyone is together." I stared through my office window at the snow beginning to fall across the base. 22 years in uniform had taught me how to absorb difficult news without showing emotion. This felt harder. I forced a smile she couldn't see. "If that's what makes everyone comfortable, then it's okay." "Really?" "Of course." "I'm sorry, Mom. Don't be. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. I love you." "I love you too." After the call ended, I sat perfectly still. Not because I was angry, because I suddenly realized I had become the guest in the family I helped create. A few minutes later, I walked to the duty office and volunteered for the Christmas rotation. The young lieutenant behind the desk looked surprised. "Ma'am, you've already covered Thanksgiving." "I know. You don't have to keep taking holiday shifts." I smiled. "Someone has to." Christmas Eve arrived with freezing temperatures and steady snowfall. The base was unusually quiet except for the handful of service members who, like me, couldn't be home. Some were only 19 or 20, pretending they weren't homesick while laughing over terrible instant coffee in the operations center. We shared stories, exchanged small gifts, and tried to make the night feel normal. Just after midnight, I looked across the empty runway as snow drifted under the floodlights. My phone remained silent. No Christmas message. No family photo. No call from Emma. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and returned to my duties. At exactly 12:03 a.m., somewhere hundreds of miles away, another phone started ringing. It wasn't mine. It was my ex-husband's. And the caller ID read only one word: Pentagon. At 6:15 Christmas morning, I finally looked at my phone during a quiet moment in the operations center. 5 missed calls. 3 voicemails. Every one of them from my ex-husband. David almost never called unless it involved Emma. Even after all these years, we mostly communicated through short texts. Seeing his name repeated across my screen made my pulse quicken. Before I could call back, my phone rang again. It was him. The moment I answered, he spoke so fast I could barely understand him. "Rachel, where are you?" "On base." You need to turn on the news. I frowned. Why? The Pentagon has been looking for you since midnight. For a second, I thought he was joking. What are you talking about? I got the call because years ago you listed me as your emergency family contact. They couldn't reach your secure military number, so they called me. Rachel, what did you do? I looked around the operations center. Everything seemed perfectly ordinary. A few officers were drinking coffee. Someone was laughing at a card game near the break room. I honestly don't know. Everyone's talking about you. Before I could ask another question, my commanding officer stepped through the doorway. Major Carter. His voice carried across the room. We've been trying to locate you. Every conversation stopped. He walked directly toward me with an expression I had never seen before. Ma'am? He smiled. I need you in the conference room immediately. Inside waited two senior generals on a secure video call. One of them spoke first. Major Carter, congratulations. I blinked. For what, sir? The humanitarian evacuation mission in Eastern Europe. My mind immediately returned to 8 months earlier. A devastating earthquake. Entire communities trapped. Airfields damaged. Roads destroyed. Thousands of civilians needing evacuation before another storm arrived. Most people never heard about the operation because it wasn't considered headline news. But I remembered every exhausting hour. For 18 straight days, I coordinated aircraft schedules, supply chains, medical transports, and emergency landing zones with almost no sleep. Every delayed decision could have cost lives. When the mission ended, I filed my reports and returned to work. That was it. Or so I believed. The general continued. An independent international review concluded that your logistical planning directly enabled the safe evacuation of more than 12,000 civilians and hundreds of medical personnel. I sat speechless. The Department of Defense has approved public recognition of your leadership. The announcement became official at midnight. Another officer smiled. News organizations picked it up almost immediately. Everything suddenly made sense. The missed calls. David's panic. The Pentagon contacting him. The general wasn't finished. The Secretary of Defense would like you in Washington after the holidays to receive a Distinguished Civil Support Medal. I was only doing my job, sir. Exactly. He nodded. That's why this recognition matters. An hour later, I finally checked my messages. My phone was overflowing. Former coworkers, old friends, military families, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Then I opened social media. My picture appeared beside headlines describing the evacuation mission and the lives saved through careful planning. The comments weren't about medals. They were from parents thanking the military for bringing children home safely. That meant more than any award ever could. Then another call came. Emma. I answered quietly. Hi, sweetheart. She was crying before she spoke. Mom, I didn't know. It's okay. No, it isn't. Her voice cracked. They're talking about you everywhere. Dad just told us why the Pentagon called. I closed my eyes. I never wanted attention. I thought work always came before us. It never did. Silence filled the line. Then she whispered the words that broke my heart. I spent years believing you chose your job over me. I looked through the operations center window as the Christmas sunrise painted the snow-covered runway gold. No, sweetheart. My job was how I protected people. And every day, I hoped one of those people would never have to miss Christmas with their own family. Emma and I stayed on the phone for nearly an hour. For the first time in years, neither of us was rushing to end the conversation. She asked questions she had never asked before. Mom, why didn't you ever tell me about the missions? I smiled sadly, because most of them weren't mine to tell. But you miss so much. I know. My school plays. I watched every recording. My volleyball games. I kept every schedule in my desk drawer. My birthdays. I celebrated every one of them, even if I had to do it from another continent. She started crying again. I thought you forgot. I never forgot a single one. There was another long silence before she whispered something that hurt almost as much as hearing her ask me not to come for Christmas. I'm so sorry. You don't have to apologize. Yes, I do. She took a shaky breath. I judged you without understanding what your life was really like. I leaned back in my chair. Emma, being a soldier means accepting that sometimes the people you're protecting never know your name. Being a mother in uniform means accepting that sometimes even your own child won't understand why you're gone. I understand now. Those 4 words meant more than every headline I had read that morning. The day after Christmas, Emma surprised me. She drove nearly 3 hours to the base by herself. When I saw her standing outside the operations building wearing the same red scarf I'd given her years earlier, I barely recognized the little girl who used to wave goodbye as I deployed. She walked toward me, then wrapped both arms around me before saying a single word. I'm here. I hugged her tighter than I had in years. For the rest of the afternoon, I showed her around the base. She met young service members who were spending their first Christmas away from home. She talked with medics preparing emergency equipment. She watched mechanics working in freezing temperatures so aircraft could leave on time. Nobody complained. Nobody asked for recognition. They simply did their jobs. As we walked back across the flight line, Emma looked around quietly. I never realized how many people give up holidays so complete strangers can spend them with their families. Most people don't. She slipped her hand into mine. I'm proud of you, Mom. I stopped walking. Out of everything that had happened, the Pentagon announcement, the medal, the interviews waiting after the holidays, those 5 words struck me the hardest. Not because I needed her approval, because I had missed hearing them for so many years. A week later, David called. His voice sounded different, quieter. I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything. I do. He sighed. I spent years thinking your career always came first. I repeated that idea until Emma believed it too. Neither of us spoke for a moment. I should have defended the sacrifices you made instead of resenting them. Thank you. That was enough. I wasn't interested in revenge. There was nothing to win anymore. Some victories don't come from proving someone wrong. They come from finally being understood. A month later, I stood in Washington as I accepted a medal on behalf of every quiet military professional whose work is rarely seen. The applause ended. The cameras flashed. But none of that became my favorite memory. My favorite moment happened afterward. Emma hugged me outside the ceremony, smiled through happy tears, and said, "Next Christmas, you're coming home first. The family can adjust around you this time." I laughed for the first time in what felt like years. Because the greatest gift I received that Christmas wasn't recognition from the Pentagon. It was getting my daughter back.